Welcome to the Purple Rock Survivor podcast. I'm John, my co-host is Andy, and I am so excited to talk about this week's episode that I'm just going to skip right over making any contrived references to Gen X pop culture, and instead dive right in to talk about the Clegane Bowl that we didn't even know we wanted. Get hype, Andy.
Yeah, I was wondering, as the podcast's resident Michaela hater, this episode had to be pretty satisfying for you, right?
I guess it's one of those things where, when we have our Slack chats and only comparatively is one person more than the other, who's the biggest nerd. In any other groups, we would all be the biggest nerd, but because we're all together, it's an actual debate. I guess in that sense, I would be the Michaela hater of this podcast.
For 2 seasons, I had to, be the guy who hated Shireen because I just wasn't over the moon with her like you are. So you're gonna wear this. You hate Michaela. It's obvious. Anybody who was listening to last week will back me up on that.
Oh, I'm sure they would back you up on that, but that's just because our listeners would love to troll me, and I respect them for that.
If they weren't into that, they stopped listening a long time ago. Wow. Huh?
Oh, that tribal council. Why even, talk about anything else? That has to be point A of discussion this week.
Yeah, I've watched it a few times, including right before we started recording, because
so did I.
It just blew me away. It was such an amazing moment that it almost made me feel okay with the fact that the most entertaining person this season and possibly in the past few seasons was going home, because that was just incredible.
Everything about that tribal council, the music, the shots that they chose, Probst pausing, everything about it was just done perfectly. The execution was flawless. I mean, it's after 15 plus years of doing the show, it's almost like they're really, really good at it.
Yeah, it's they had the camera on the reverse angle of Michaela. That camera should have been behind their heads, but when she turns around, we get an extreme close-up of her face staring, darting around, her eyes, trying to find meaning in Jay. And the stone cold killer, is giving her nothing. Oh my god. The way he just owned up to it in the moment and just yeah, I did it. I was heart-stopping.
The stare down that happens there. Silence, just staring each other down. They show everybody else's reaction. Everyone else is freaking out. And Jay and Michaela are just locking eyes, just silently. Michaela, trying to force choke Jay or something. It was amazing.
Yeah, it's we lost a lot of great moments because she's no longer around to deliver them. Obviously, we got a lot already, every episode. Unlike other, survivors from seasons past who would disappear for 3 episodes in a row. But she was amazing. But here's the thing, what softens the blow for me is, I don't think she could have delivered a moment as good as this one. This was the best that could probably be delivered because it was one of the best things that's ever been on Survivor. And I think, as somebody who watches a lot of TV, if you're somebody there, I'm not sure there's going to be a lot of scripted TV shows this season that deliver a moment as raw and powerful as that.
Yeah, I mean, if you have to lose Michaela, and you don't want to, obviously, because she's great, but if you have to, you want to do it in a way that's worthy of having lost Michaela, and this was that. I mean, we talked kind of about it with Michelle, it would stink if Michelle went out in a way that wasn't worthy of what we thought of her as a player. Same principle applies here with Michaela, but the bar is a lot higher, and I think it still cleared that bar.
Yeah, obviously, it would have been really exciting to see her continue. It would have been exciting to see her win, possibly. But, yeah, if you have to go, what a way to go, because that is a capital M moment in the history of the show. I don't know, in what kind of vote outs top this, and maybe we'll see some lists at some point. It was just stunning. And yeah, as you say, the uncomfortable reactions from pretty much everyone. I mean, Sunday doesn't really get a part in the edit as much, but first and foremost is obviously Hannah, who's just freaking out.
Yes,
and that's obviously been her thing all season. It pays off here. Because she is us in that moment. What's going on? Brett is just he just escaped death and he's still oh my god, this is so uncomfortable. I don't want to be here. The contrast, Will is making the eyes yeah, it happened. Whereas Jay is just dead ass, just, yep, it was me.
Yeah, the unrepentant killer.
Oh my god. Oh, I'm gonna watch it again when we're done recording here. And this is seeing somebody I loved get eliminated from the game. But, this is Survivor, man. And yeah, to your point, Probst. What a professional. Obviously we give him a lot of, crap here on the podcast because as passionate longtime Survivor fans, that is our, we get that. That's, it's one thing we get to do. But the fact that he held that fourth vote, he just keeps it close and lets the moment breathe. That's just shows why he is still, for all his flaws, the best at this.
Yeah, he knows to let the entertainment play out and just to see what's going to happen here. And it's funny because when he first grabs it, you can tell he's about to open it, and then he sees what's taking place and he just pauses it and closes it right back up. Like, oh, wait a minute. Nope, hang on. Got to see where this is going to go.
Yeah, and then he doesn't let it go for that long, or at least, from what we see in the edit, it doesn't feel that long, because you still gotta finish her off, so to speak. But, yeah, and it's just great. And, I think, it kind of gets to some of, the essence of Probst. First and foremost, his desire is to create entertainment. He wants to create compelling TV. Where we run into problems with him is that he sometimes has too narrow a definition of what that means, or the things that he always finds entertaining doesn't necessarily jive with us. But he will always err on the side of what will make more interesting television. Whereas some people might just be like, well, these are the rules. This is what we got to do. He knew to let the end. Oh my God. It was just something. So, Michaela's gone, man.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned this, but it's sort of like the ceiling, the possible entertainment ceiling for this season has dropped now. I mean, you're losing a lot by losing Michaela. I'm not going to crap on the rest of the cast. I think there's still a lot of good players and entertaining players left, but it's kind of like losing your superstar to injury for the season. Like, oh, you keep up hope that you might, struggle through it and win a championship anyway, but it's going to be an uphill battle.
Yeah, or it's just it's a little tougher, things will be just a little less interesting. Obviously, yeah, where the analogy breaks down is maybe some multiple players can fill that vacuum, because obviously the one thing that happens when you have such stellar talent on Survivor is they suck up a lot of the screen time. Now, I actually feel like she's been really economical with her entertainment. Not a very high usage rate with Michaela. She's just, very efficient with her entertainment delivery. But, so, yeah, I think there's still potential, but none of these people can match her shine, which I think kind of gets into a bit of the reason why you can understand why maybe somebody might want to get rid of her. But, did she do something wrong here? Was this just one of those cases where somebody did something crazy, can't really anticipate it? Or was there something she could have done differently that would have resulted in her still being there?
I mean, just going off the explanations we got in the episode, there's not much she could have done that was all that different. The one thing I will say is that in all her pregame press, she had talked about how she has this really expressive face, and she's going to shut her mouth, but her face is going to give her away. What we actually saw this season was the mouth part of her face giving things away, because even at the reward challenge, when she sees Figgy is gone, she throws out the bye Felicia, and theoretically Taylor is still her ally in that instance, and Jay's ally, so probably not the best idea.
Yeah, and I think that scene, which also was amazing,
yes,
when it happened and the big smile on her face, I just burst out laughing. It's just like, she's amazing. I love her. I can't believe I'm on a podcast with somebody who can't appreciate her, but, so that was an amazing moment. But yeah, I think it's instructive. It shows that the person who voted her out last night maybe wasn't so cool with that, and if you listen to her exit interviews, it sounds like, when she wasn't busy trying to help Michelle win the challenge last week, she was trying to communicate with Adam, vote out Figgy, vote out Figgy. And then talked about it with, Ikebula. So, it wasn't a secret that she was very happy with, Figgy's ouster and wanted to help make that happen. Well, if you're Jay, you're like, but that's my ally, dude. That's all of our allies. So, yeah, this whole argument of let's keep everything, close together, we'll never turn on each other. It's like, but you just turned on one of us now. So I just think ultimately she just didn't make Jay and Will feel comfortable enough with her. Some of that, yeah, is just because, she's awesome and people don't want to lose to awesome people. At that point, there's not as much you can do. I'm not a huge proponent of make yourself seem weak so that people will keep you around. Because if you're too good at that, you will seem weak. It's like, hey, succeed. Nobody's voting for you. But I do think that just, to your point, her mouth got her in trouble. Her face got her in trouble. To the point where these two guys, because it's really just them, decided.
Yeah, let's be honest. It was the one guy and his friend.
Yeah. One guy and then the other one's vote. I'm okay with that, in terms of assigning credit. Just decide, it was like, no, moving forward with her is not something I want to do.
I'm enjoying this with you in the fangirl role here because isn't it wonderful? Now that you're experiencing it, isn't it great?
Well, the difference is I'm also like fanboying it up about her like leaving the game. And also I just really am staking this out because I know that like if I had let you, you also would have elbowed me out for this rebound. Just like you're really good at boxing out position. And I'm like, no, you cannot have this one. I will, cast negative feelings that aren't even true about you. I will create negative ads, whatever I need to do. You don't get this one.
Oh, I feel like I want to be the Dikembe Mutombo and just swat this away from you and wave the finger in your face.
Too late. People are already on Team Andy in this one.
Hey, speaking of the NBA references though, I was so disappointed. After the Bye Felicia thing, I was crossing my fingers and I tweeted this too. I just wanted her to slip in the never forget the Warriors blew a 3-1 lead in the NBA Finals. If that had happened, she might climb into the top 2 or 3 survivors ever.
I think that meme wasn't a thing before she was out there. So that would have, she would almost have had to simultaneously create it. I'm not even sure if the finals had happened by the time they recorded.
Yeah, you're right. I think they might have not taken place. So it would have been even more amazing if she said
I know. It would have been like, I never let it forget that the Oklahoma City Thunder blew a 3-1 lead. Man, not that anybody could ever blow a 3-1 lead.
Never happens in sports.
So yeah, if she didn't make Jay feel comfortable to the point where he thought to get rid of him, should he have thought that? Was this the right move? I've got a lot of thoughts.
We've discussed this in previous seasons, but if your choice is between making a move too soon or too late, always err on the side of too soon. That's the actual lesson that you can take away from Tony. Get before you get got. And was she necessarily coming for him next week? No. But at the same time, maybe she was down the road and now she's not. And also, she's no longer going to be a juror that hates you for getting her out. She's not a juror at all.
Yeah, I think the jury thing is the biggest part of the argument. For me, that's just enough. She would have destroyed Jay and the jury is to the most of her power. I mean, unless your argument is, who's going to listen to Michaela? There's no way she would have forgiven him. And if you doubt that, did you not see the way she just reacted to getting voted out by Jay? She did not take it well in the moment. So yeah.
Yeah, I like the argument, by the way, that, she's been so gracious in these post-game interviews. And yes, she has. But it's also been, 9 months-ish since they recorded? In that time, yes, I'm sure she's gotten over it and she's very gracious about it. But, 2 weeks after it happened, was she quite so gracious about it? I don't know.
Yeah, and being on the jury is quite different because you're out, but you're not, right? You still have a chance to do something, and what most people do is like, I'm gonna get this person. So no, yeah, he had a chance to take the shot, and the blowback would be minimal. And so yeah, I support that. Now I am sympathetic to the argument that maybe, and especially if you present it in the simplest terms. He voted out somebody who was probably fairly loyal to him in order to keep somebody who might not be. Yeah, but when you put it that way, it doesn't sound so good. But I don't think that's quite what happened here. As you say, with Tony and LJ, if it's a major threat, the best time to take him out is when you can.
Mm-hmm.
Tony isn't even the first example of that. Tyson did it in Blood versus Water with Aris. His first merge, he took out somebody in his alliance that was on his tribe the whole time. Because it presented themselves. And it's weird that like in a post Mike Holloway world, people are like, nobody wins all the challenges. It's like, we literally saw that. Now, if your point is Michaela is no Mike Holloway, or better, this cast is not Mike Holloway's competition.
Yeah, that's probably more apt.
But it's not like they'd be trying to take her out next week or the week after that. If you think that's what they were going to do, then you should have no problem with them taking them taking her out this week. What people are advocating is, oh no, you ride with her a bit for the end and then you take her out then. Well, then is when you might lose your chance, you know. They last season, one season ago, they thought they had plenty of opportunities to get rid of Michelle Fitzgerald. And that didn't happen. So yeah, I think if you have somebody who you think is a major threat, which I think Michaela is, you take them out when you can. And I think what a lot of this criticism boils down to is just philosophy. My personal philosophy is a little different than other people's, other, watchers, other former players. Some people prefer, moves that reduce risk because they are more afraid of losing than winning. I prefer moves that put you in a better position to win, even if it means incurring incredible risk to lose. And so I think what happened with Jay's decision is two things happened. One, he absolutely increased his chances of getting voted out in the next couple of weeks. Or, TV episodes. I think he is now more likely to go in the next few episodes than he would have been if Michaela had stayed. But on the other hand, I also think he increased his chances of winning. And it's not just a simple binary of winning or losing and how can you create both. The big middle is staying for a long time, but not winning. And I think a lot of people, when they're judging moves or when they're playing themselves, they're just like, let me just survive. What moves will give me the better chance to stick around for a while? And then they worry about winning then. But, to a point, I think you were getting at, a lot of those people lose.
Yeah. I do like how you subtweeted certain other former players that podcast, though. Well done.
Yeah, well, I mean, if I want to move the subtweet, on Know-It-Alls, they were both like, this is a terrible move. And I just like, how does a guy who 2 times playing set himself up against people he could never beat think that, like, you should move, this is too early to take out a power player? It's like, well, maybe if you would have taken out somebody a little earlier, you might have had a better chance.
One other thing I enjoyed is Jay, and we've been saying for the past couple weeks, like, I really, really poorly evaluated Jay in the pregame, but he specifically mentioned burying Michaela pre-merge so she couldn't tell anyone about the idol. And if he didn't trust her enough to have her keep that idol a secret, yes, this is the time to do it.
Yeah, and that gets back to, what did she do wrong? When she just, rolled up on them, finding the idol, which, again, was awesome. Mm-hmm. She didn't then do the move. It's like, okay, cool, work together. You guys don't have to worry about it. What are we going to do with the idol? Even if she knows in her heart that's BS, that this is Jay's idol and it's a problem for her. When you discover that secret, you need to make them feel comfortable. Otherwise, you're a witness to a drug deal and you need to be dealt with.
Someone's going to take out that narc.
Yeah, and was that the primary motivator? I don't think so. I think Jay was I think he was threatened. But it helped, it's just like, hey, this person knows we have an idol. That might become dangerous for us later on. Well, how about now? Because the shot was there. I don't think there was a way they could have screwed it up. The only way they could screw it up is just if this is the wrong call. And, the big part is, her big plan was, that Final Four. But that wasn't Jay's Final Four. Michaela was not in his Final Four. So if he's not planning to go to the end with her, then the next move is you're putting her on a jury. And we already discussed that's not the best move.
And the other thing is, the shot was set up perfectly for him because he has that idol and he knows that she doesn't. So after a merge, there might be another idol in play that she could get. So when you go to take her out, maybe she's immune from having won a challenge, or maybe she has an immunity idol. Now you know she doesn't and she's not immune. You can get her now. So I'm not going to fault him.
And you have 2 people that are just willing to vote however somebody gives them a lifeline. Right. That opportunity might not come about again. But yeah, so she wasn't in his final plans. She's a big threat to beat him. Take her out. And could it blow up? Could he get voted out as a result? Because, Hannah flips and the numbers aren't there. Absolutely it could. But guess what? 19 people are going to lose this game. Again, I just don't think that playing because you're afraid that something is going to lose is a way to play. It can be for some people. For some people, all you need to do is hang around long enough and something will open up for you, or that you're not going to become a target and you can do stuff. Jay's not one of those kind of players. He has to play to win, because if he doesn't create winning scenarios for himself, he never will.
Right, because at some point, if he gets to the end not having done stuff like this, people are going to think he's Dopey Fabio, who actually won, which so that might not make my example too good, but you want to get to the end and have people respect your game. Even though there's not yet a jury, I think this could make people respect his game.
Yeah, well, actually, let's dig into that just a little bit more, because that was another topic discussion, and I believe actually kind of a question we got from Rhea, I believe. It's just, is it too early to make your big move resume before there's a jury? My own point is, like, some of these people are going to be on the jury. So, I mean, if that's the
exactly.
thing, we just know that there's a merge. I don't think everybody who makes the merge is going to make the jury, but, like, some of these people are going to be there, so that'll be there. And it's not like this is like a subtle move that nobody will understand. Everybody there knew Michaela was a big target, and Jay's going to get 100% of the credit for it. So, yeah, I think actually the jury will, if they are a jury that are, wanting to reward moves, not all juries are, this one will count. That said, I don't think that's necessarily the best argument to make a move. It's like, oh, I gotta build my resume. That is where I think the criticism that often comes up with big moves becomes a problem. I think literally this is Jay decided to do something that he thought would increase his chances of winning.
But you're right, though. As soon as they get to that merge, everybody's going to say, whoa, Michaela's gone. How'd that happen? So he's going to get all the credit for it, for good and for bad.
Yeah, and I think some of it, like, do you think Taylor's going to be upset to see Michaela go?
Right.
Yeah, I think he'll be like, good job, bro. I think, Michelle might be pretty happy about it, too. I don't think she was very excited to see to see Figgy go and, Michaela to dance on her grave. So, yeah, I do think he'll get some credit from some of the people. And I think some of the other people will be like, wow, one less threat just was taken out. That's awesome for me and impressive. And do you think they're, like, passing that credit on to Will?
And then, you know what? There was one more argument that I had seen too, is that, if you're Jay, you would want to keep Michaela around as this, post-merge immunity threat. Chris is still in the game. Taylor's still in the game. There are other immunity threats. Ken is still there. Michaela's not the only other immunity threat out there. And also, we've discussed this many times, but the post-merge immunity challenges now tend to be things that don't necessarily favor the most athletic or strong person anymore.
Yeah, well, one last thing actually is just her strategic shops. She brings everybody together. She talks about the boots and all that, and that's when, Jay and Will's eyes, like, open up. It's like, oh my god, she's so scary.
Yeah. Let's break down what that strategic move was that she was suggesting.
Yeah, even while it was happening, I was like, okay, let's see what Michaela's got. And I'm like, oh, okay, so you, called everybody together to say, we need to vote out a Gen Xer and it doesn't matter which one. Man, oh my god, what a beautiful mind. I just don't understand you, John Nash.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, so you're basically suggesting a strategy that's been in place since season 1, season 2. Great, thanks. Wow. Groundbreaking.
And if you listen to extra interviews, she actually was more of a fan back then, and she likes it better back then when it was about teams and alliances and less all this, crazy deceit and stuff. Yeah, that's all. They're like, well, okay, yeah, thanks, coach. We were planning on doing that. I do think where it freaked them out a bit is when she started talking down the line, and that gets back into it. I think she laid out a lot of plans that clearly weren't Jay's plans, and it's like, ooh, this really might be a problem for me. Whereas, maybe before she could have skated by as, the fifth in their alliance, it showed that, she has no desire to be that. Nor should she. I'm not, contradicting myself here. Michaela also should play to win. But yeah, I think Jay saw that, and it's just like, yeah, okay, she is going to be dangerous for me. And yeah, and it's the whole, jury thing isn't just us making up things post facto. There is a bonus scene where he talks about, I need to get her out before the jury, because if I will lose her jury vote. And I've already lost Figgy as a jury vote. If I put Michaela there, I'm going to lose it. So that was part of his calculus, and I agree with that wholeheartedly.
So impressed with Jay. Hey, another thing, I think, our commenter Hornacek pointed this out. In all 3 post-swap votes, the tribe with numbers voted out one of their own. That's insane.
Which is another point of this. I think some people are all like, oh, Jay's screwed now. Those Gen Xers are going to all get together, and the Millennials are going to be pissed off that he broke the Millennial bond. It's like, have you guys not been paying attention? Those bonds haven't meant squat for 3 straight weeks. So, could it happen that, like, Hannah joins up with Zeke and David, and yeah, absolutely could happen. I have no idea how the configuration is going to go. That's not a reason for not doing something. The avoidance of risk in Survivor does not equal success. In fact, a lot of times you can avoid risk all the way until you're just irrelevant. Joe Del Campo avoided risk the entire way, and he was never going to win. So, yeah, the Gen Xers are not together. I don't see how, that Chris is super excited to see Jessica. That is like, all right, we're all together. Let's topple these guys. The Millennials are not going to be really broken up over the exit of Michaela. I'm not sure she had close bonds with any of them but Hannah. Her closest bond she thought she had was with Jay.
Well, let's get into the forming of bonds after voting someone out, because at the very start of this episode, we had a scene that I enjoyed and probably would have been a highlight of the episode if not for that insane tribal council. Adam apologizing to Taylor after the Figgy vote. And it goes on for, let's say, 30 seconds or so. But essentially, it's Adam repeating the same thing over and over again and just really digging the dagger in just a little deeper every time. Like, hey, I just, want you to know I screwed you and I apologize. And Taylor's like, yeah, you did. But I just want to put it out there that, you were in a great spot. We were doing really well. You had a clear path to the end. I ruined that for you. And Taylor's like, yeah, you definitely did. Yeah, but now you're boned. You can't possibly win. And it's all me. It's on me, Adam, that screwed it up for you.
Did I ruin your chance at ever getting laid again?
Yep. It was possibly the worst smoothing over that I've seen in many, many seasons.
And, for amazing parallelism within the edit, it is just the flip side of what, he sat in witness to with Hannah and Zeke earlier. What is it with these millennials coming out from post-vote? It's just like, wait, hear me out. I gotta talk until you feel better about me. I don't know how to do that, but let's do it. Oh, it was laughably terrible.
If only he had an Adam there to tell him that Taylor wouldn't be receptive.
Yeah, and it's like, and also, like, if you're gonna do it, if it's really like, let's get absolution now, even though, like, I don't know what he was looking for at that point. You just voted out the dude's girlfriend. That wasn't the best approach. All he's doing is like, in case you've forgotten, that was me. And, like, I get, like, where he was starting to go. Like, I did these things. I recognize it. I'm validating your feelings. But he never got to the but.
It's great that you're owning up to what you did and, you're not trying to hide behind excuses or anything like that. But that needs to transition into some sort of apology and how we move forward type talk. Yeah. Rather than the constant, like, so just so we're clear, I really submarined your game here.
And also, like, I don't even know what his apology or, like, let's bring this together was. Like, but you and me, we're totally going to work together. It's like, no, I think Taylor knew where he stood right there at that moment, and it was accurate. Like, I don't think if you have a plan to go forward with Taylor, then you shouldn't have voted out Figgy. And if you're expecting him to understand, you guys were a huge threat to me, and I wanted to make sure you couldn't beat me. Okay, yeah, I'm sure Taylor's gonna be like, oh, of course, bro, of course. Well, just walk away, Adam.
Exactly. Maybe finish the conversation in the morning after the emotion has deflated a little bit.
I'll be so disappointed if Jay has a similar conversation with Hannah next week.
Oh no.
That he initiates. I mean, she'll probably want to have that conversation, but I want him to just speak to her. It's like, yep, I did it. And just
when Jay said, yep, I did it, much more amazing.
That's it. He wasn't looking for your he wasn't looking for absolution from you. I did it. Yep.
That's right. All right, let's move on to other people in this episode, because there were actually other ones. We had a scene with David telling Zeke about his idol. Were you a fan of that? Do you think it's time to bring Zeke in to that inner circle for him?
I think what's missing for me to fully judge this is I don't have a good sense of where their relationship and their bond was at this moment. Because for me, it felt like, dude, chill. Like, I get wanting to bring Zeke in and, make him your ally more than, Chris's ally. But it's just like, it felt like he was cutting to the chase a little quickly.
Yeah, and, I want to point something out that investigative buff journalist Jeff Pittman discovered. He says that those buffs were clearly edited in post and that conversation actually happens after the merge. You're a good man, Jeff Pittman. Thanks for the heads up on that.
Okay, I'm glad you say that, and actually I was waiting for Pittman to say something about this, because when I was watching Zeke's confessional about this, like immediately following, like, is he against a green screen? Like, it just didn't feel real to the point, and, you know, my wife can confirm this through the comments that she'll never leave, because, yeah, she doesn't read our site.
Same with mine.
I kept reversing it. I just was like looking. It's like, are the clouds moving? Like, I swear that's a backdrop. So
you weren't the only one either, because I was on Twitter at the time, and there were a lot of people saying, like, is Zeke CGI'd into something?
Yeah, so I guess he kind of was. I don't, and I'm like, why would the buff switching change the background? But maybe like they were doing stuff with his beard. They usually don't do that though. But yeah, no, that felt just weird to me.
It might have just been that he was in a different place than he usually was for his confessionals when he was back on whatever previous location he was at. So They wanted to make it look more believable.
Yeah, maybe he was on the wrong beach or something. Not that I would ever be a person that would know where.
Exactly. That's the thing is I don't notice the buffs being edited. Why would I notice what the beach was?
But yeah, it just did not look real. It's just like not only look great green screen, it looked bad green screen. But yeah, so that's the problem. It's just like it felt abrupt. But, yeah, and to this point, this is probably key evidence. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe he had established enough of a relationship with Zeke that he felt like this is somebody I could talk to about it. In which case, I don't have as big an issue. You know, it would be really weird if I did, since I had no issue with, you know, him doing it with Ken.
Right. And I think that's where I was going to go with this, is that I think that David's just trying to deploy a strategy he's already used successfully. I think he's figuring, hey, this worked with me and Ken. Maybe this is also going to be my in with Zeke. Like, this is how I'm going to form bonds with people. I'm going to, like, provide tangible evidence of my trust in them. And, you know, it did work with Ken. I'm less convinced that it'll work with Zeke, but like you said, we don't necessarily have the full picture of what their relationship is like at this point.
Well, I also think a player like David, he needs a little juice behind these things. It's not like, you know, he can like bring you into, you know, the warm shield of the protection he offers, right?
Right.
So like, hey, align with me and we'll go far places. Like you. So that I think, you know, for somebody like him, he probably does need something like that. That is like, I can offer something more than, you know, my 80-pound frame and constant nervousness. And, you know, what I would have liked more from the scene, and again, we don't see the whole scene, is for him to, like, give a bit of his resume here. Not only do I have this idol and it's showing you that I trust you, but it's like, I have a history of making idols team idols. I've saved an ally once before. I'd be willing to do that with you. And that is an argument that's proven effective. Now, in the past, generally it helps because the person was there to see it. You know, like once, you know, Jeremy does it in Cambodia or, you know, Russell does it in Heroes versus Villains. But, you know, I think even just telling him, no, that said, I don't know that Zeke that hasn't heard that story. Maybe he has.
Right. Especially if this is post-merge, you got to potentially talk to Jessica.
Right. A lot of people were saying that, you know, it seemed like a more comfortable David. He wasn't quite as squirrely. Even his nods to, you know, being paranoid just didn't see him as paranoid.
He wasn't afraid as seeming afraid.
Yeah. Did you get that vibe?
Yeah, he does seem a little more at ease, but I mean, that makes sense. He's at this point, like 3 weeks into the game. So whatever anxiety levels he was at, I'm sure they were still very high, but relative to where they were when he first started the game, they've probably dropped.
You know, one thing I think that might have really helped him feel a little more comfortable, be able to approach people a little bit better. Maybe it was that move that everybody hated a few weeks ago. Everybody but, say, us. And the main argument I made there, which is why I'm bringing it back up, because longtime listeners will know there's few things I love more than I told you so, is that he had to make a big move in order to feel comfortable in the game instead of just constantly worrying, like, I'll just hang back here and let other people control things. He wanted to do something so that he could be in a position that he felt better in. I think that might have had an effect. Now, obviously, I think to your point, being there longer probably helped, but like it hasn't helped Hannah be less jittery, for instance. So yeah, I think probably getting that win under his belt, you know, saving Jessica probably has helped David be just a little less, feeling a little less weak and paranoid.
Yeah, and then the point that I made at that time was he was using idols like currency, and he's using it again, like currency, to buy Zeke's friendship. So I'm not going to knock it. It's worked for him before. Again, I don't know that it's the best job to use it on Zeke, but it could pay off in the same way. You never know.
No. So yeah, we've covered epic tribal councils. We've covered, epic failures and managing vote outs. We've covered, the idol thing that I think will be a storyline forward. I think the next biggest thing in the episode clearly was farts.
Oh, how could we not discuss farts? Because we got an awesome scene of the post-meal, I don't even remember what their Vanua tribe, whatever, the orange tribe, just letting them rip. And, well, 3/4 of them letting them rip. And Michelle didn't seem super pleased with that.
Yeah, a couple things. First off, farts are funny.
Yep.
Secondly, I guess 3 things. Secondly, like this is, I know a lot of people watch Survivor with their kids. It seems like, and I can get it why. It's programming that I think is not very offensive. There's things they could follow.
Unless you're some kind of super conservative parent, but those people don't exist.
No. And I think, a lot of them will still watch it too. I don't, because I don't want the distraction and that sort of thing. But if I were, this scene would have sent my boys just dying. Oh my God. People are sitting around farting. So great. And you know what? Be they 7, 3 years old, whatever, they're right, damn it. But
it's the universal language.
But to bring it to a more, high-minded, serious thought, it was also just this perfect, distillation of the way women have been treated this entire season, right?
It was very much like saying, oh, you're still here? I thought we voted all of you guys out. Just give us a few more weeks. You ladies will be on.
Yeah, but you can sit there quietly. We're just going to be men and do what we need to do, even if it's spreading our gases. So, while some of us are laughing, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some women just like, oh God, I've so been there.
Yep.
So on that fun note.
Yeah, speaking of, getting all the women out, this episode, once again, and I was so confident that Michaela was going to be the one to break this trend that we've hinted at and openly discussed for several times this season. Women of color going home, and specifically women of color. Like, everyone, all but one vote so far has been for a woman. We actually started off the season with a cast that was fairly diverse. I mean, relative to, recent seasons, it had a decent amount of diversity, and now they're almost all gone, or they basically are all gone.
Yeah, we basically have Jay, who is, mixed heritage left.
Yeah, I think he's half Peruvian or something.
Right, and he's not coded as a minority, he was, literally in the majority, right? He was one of the popular cool kids.
He gets the bro edit. Yeah.
It's not great, and, we've talked about it through the season. I don't think we've been people that get shy about it, but since this will be the last time to discuss it, at least maybe until the finale, what does this say about Survivor? And I think it's more complicated than what a racist show.
I saw some complaints that oh, well, this is casting's fault. Why are they casting these people that are going to get voted out early? First of all, I'm going to stick up for the show here. Half of those women at least half were women of color, way better than most seasons that you're going to get. And they weren't just fodder. I mean, there's some seasons where okay, this person was cast to be just useless fodder that's going to go home really early and pad out episodes for the other players to last longer. That's not the case with people like Michaela or Figgy even, or Mari. They were cast to have some sort of impact on the season, and instead they're gone right away. That's not casting's fault.
Yeah, no, they tried, man. They tried. They didn't even just we can't have more than one Asian woman. It's hey, we got three, then we're using 3. They tried. And it's if people want to flip side, it's well, then they shouldn't cast racist. They didn't. I don't think they did. I don't think these people are necessarily racist. And that's why the discussion is deeper than that. And why so many people can just dismiss it. It's well, these people aren't racist. I mean, again, I should say, they don't seem it, but, current events have shown us a lot more people are racist than we want to think. But it's not racism fully. It shows That's why this stuff matters and why it's difficult. That's why representation matters. That's why, quotas are necessary still, is that people feel more comfortable with people like them. They don't dislike the other people. Nobody voted out Cece because they didn't like her because they were black. They voted her out because she didn't fit in, quote unquote. Well, what does that mean? It's just that she doesn't seem like us. And also for her, she might have had a hard time fitting in because they weren't like her. And people who don't understand that, and I should, state, I don't know how many of those people are, say, hardcore listeners, but people that don't understand that, people who say, why do we need the Rooney rules, all that, it's just because people promote and understand and bond with people they know better. And if you can't have that level of empathy, a good way to overcome that is maybe try being the only white person in an area for a bit. Then maybe you kind of understand it a bit of why it's a little difficult to fit in. And to say that that wasn't a factor is naive.
Two things here. One, I should clarify the Rooney Rule because I can't imagine all our listeners know this, but the Rooney Rule is an NFL thing where anytime you have a high-level job, coach, executive, whatever, you have to interview at least one minority candidate. You don't have to hire the person, but you have to at least give an interview to a minority candidate. Partly just because that way you at least see somebody. You put a different face in front of you, a different opinion that you might not have considered before.
Because you tend to associate with people like yourself,
Exactly.
And a major criticism of that rule is, then there's become this little cottage industry that we're like, this is the guy that we're all going to call, and they don't take it seriously. Absolutely. There's some people that are terrible that aren't going to take it seriously. But what also happens is Pittsburgh's like, well, okay, let's do this. And then they talk to Mike Tomlin and they're blown away because he gives one of the best interviews ever. And that's the point. It forces you out of your comfort zone to consider people, and you might get exposed to it. So then if you get a situation with Survivor and you're like, you know what, we need to diversify, and suddenly they find a Michaela that they weren't even looking for, who wasn't applying, by the way. This is why we praise Cook Islands, because they had to go out there and look at people. Do you think somebody like Yule is beating down Survivor's door to get there? No. And if they are bound and determined, we are going to get a full cast of, a full tribe of Asians, they might not even look for a Yule in the first place. And that's why diversity matters. It's not because everybody's racist. Although, again, I will add, more people than we might want to think. It's because people are comfortable around who they are. And you know who pointed this out really well? Michaela.
Michaela killed it. I'll get to that in 1 second because you did mention earlier something that I wanted to discuss because this was a eye-opening moment for me. I was early 20s-ish and I went out with my friend. We went to a bar and he says, "Hey, I'm the only black guy here." I was like, "Oh, really? I didn't notice." He's like, "You would notice if you were the only white guy in a black bar." And I went, "You are very correct. I would." And it's just, I didn't think of it that way. But in his situation, which I'm sure he experiences fairly often relative to me experiencing the reverse, he's like, "Hey, this is just something I noticed because this has happened to me before." You don't think about it when it's your norm that it might be making certain people uncomfortable. If you dropped me in to, well, and I have been dropped into a drag show, so I can be the straight guy at the drag show, and eventually I might get comfortable with that if I go to more and more of them. But at the same time, I don't know that the people in drag all around me are necessarily going to think like, "Oh, that guy must feel so unwelcomed because he's not one of us. Let's go out of our way to welcome him." In the same way, I don't think Michaela or the other women of color were necessarily embraced by people saying like, "Hey, it might be weird for you being the lone person of color here. Is there anything that we can do to bond, to relate to you in any way? I know our experiences are different. Let's do something to form a bond."
Yeah, and actually to bring even more about Survivor, not only are they, not feeling like as your example of people in the drag show. For me, I had a lot of, Asian friends growing up because I went to Catholic school and white people are barely Catholic anymore. So I'd go to the parties. Yeah, I'd be one of the only white guys there. At least there, some people actually will reach out to make you feel better or more comfortable because you're their invited guest. In Survivor, you're incentivized to not bring in all these people in and to get rid of people. That is the name of the game. And that's where I think it becomes a bigger problem for Survivor. again, they're not bad people that they don't see this gap and don't understand why people aren't getting there, because your motivation, your first few days is, I gotta find enough people so I'm safe, I'm protected. And so that person doesn't quite seem like they're fitting in. You're not incentivized to sit there and like, oh, this must be really hard for them. It might be like, okay, cool, I have somebody to vote out.
Exactly. You take the path of least resistance, and that often is the path of least resistance.
So yeah, it's not as simple as Survivor is racist. Let's quickly get into it. Michaela was asked this by Gordon Holmes, and her answer is, it felt like America. America has these issues and these divides, and even if you're a perfectly nice person, as you related, you just don't you see these things, you might not have these gaps, or you have these gaps, you might not understand it, but more than that, Survivor as a show is where you're getting rid of people for whatever reason.
Yeah, and it might not be overt. We've said this so many times. It's not, hey, I'm going to vote out Michaela or whoever else because they are a woman of color. It's just, hey, she's not getting along with anybody, so rather than trying to make it the case that she is getting along with us, I've already got a safe alliance here, let's get rid of her instead.
Yeah, Michaela really seems to want to be in a Final Four with me, but, I kind of feel more comfortable with these guys. Again, I don't necessarily think that's Jay's motivation. In fact, Michaela felt like she had a really, actually, like a bit of a kindred spirit in Jay, because they both came from, difficult backgrounds and needed the money. But, yeah, if you're on Survivor, you might be more likely to run into, more chill bros, than you are, somebody like Michaela. Apparently you're even more likely to run into somebody else from frickin' Oklahoma.
Yeah, who would have thought?
So, so what do they do about this? Well, and the thing about it is, like, I think they were doing some of it. Like, if you're even excluding Jay and, Figgy, like, I think, how many minorities were there this season? Like 5?
Well, half the women.
Yeah. So, like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
The difficulty is, it's still not enough. It's still a minority. And that's why, the answer is more. When you expand those parameters, and you're like, we need to fill these gaps. And again, it can't just be a token. We need if we are serious, and I think a season like this might kind of snap in, like, this is not a good look for us.
Right.
It has to be more. It has to be so that somebody like Michaela or somebody like Rachel, who never even had a chance, isn't just so easily othered.
All right, let's move on to a more ridiculous topic and talk about predictions for next week.
Yeah, so it's easier. We only got to pick one person. It's harder because I don't know how this is going to shake out. Do you have any sense of the way the merge is going to go?
I don't have any idea how the alliances are going to break down. I think we've got a couple voting blocks that I expect to stick together, but just not knowing how the votes are going to fall, I'll just say Taylor's the target.
Because he's Taylor and nobody would be that upset about it?
Yeah, sure. And also, he's got that vague challenge threat thing going on. He's, if you're going after Jay and Jay's immune, Taylor's a nice surrogate to take out instead. It's Taylor, I'm just going to say.
Yeah, I think, I also don't know how it's going to go, and I'm more interested in how it's going to go than trying to figure it out now. But I do think that it's not going to be this group versus that group, which seems to be baked into a lot of people's criticism of Jay's move. I think it's going to be a series of smaller groups, and then let's see how those come together. The preview shows Hannah seeming to want to make a move with Adam and Zeke. A couple things on that. A, it could be legitimate, but they won't get enough people. B, I also think Hannah might be somebody who will talk about making a big move, but then be too scared to execute.
Like some kind of Sierra, you're saying?
Well, yeah, Sierra never executed a big move. Oh my god. I remember that time when she would...
Sierra. I'm talking about, fan favorite Sierra.
This is a preview for some people who know. I think, she might be really upset and talk about it, and I don't think it's impossible to see a scenario where a player like Jay is able to talk her down just a little bit.
So who's your pick?
I think it's going to be Chris. I think, he obviously is a very typical merge type boot, or at least merge type target. I think that what we saw with David and Zeke and what we saw with that amazing summit is setting all this storyline in motion that David, I think, will turn on him. I could see even like Brett turning on him. I think Brett will like hang with him and, you know, talk to Chris and see where the moves are. But ultimately, I don't know if Brett would stick his nose out or his neck out for Chris, much in the same way that he was prepared to write Sunday's name this week. So I think, yeah, he'll just be like, he'll just try to hang on, because that's what he did. Brett did post-swap, and it actually was incredibly successful, right? He integrated well enough and was non-threatening enough that Jay's like, I don't need to take him out. This is a bigger threat. So I think, you know, without David, without Brett, that probably loses him Sunday. He doesn't have a relationship with Jessica. I think it could not only be Chris, I think it could almost be a majority. Like unanimous.
All right, so let's dive into the mailbag. This week, first question is from Guis. He says, is this season already successful enough to warrant a Millennials versus Gen X 2? What do you think?
I guess to answer that question with a question, was Cook Island successful enough to warrant a Race Wars 2? Yeah, it just breaks down to all things Survivor. Great casting can overcome terrible ideas. Last week, you and I both recommended seasons that had terrible ideas, that were overcome with great casting. So no, I don't think it, I think they got lucky. One thing I'll say though, is the motivation for the season was generated by, we want to cast more Millennials. Do that, but don't do this.
Yeah, so I will say they did a great job casting the youths this season. And it did go much better than the last time they tried olds versus youngs. So it's got that going for them. But you don't need to rehash every theme necessarily. You know, they did the exact same theme with blue collar or white collar, quote unquote, no collar. It's the same thing as brains, brawn, beauty. Just, you know, call it something else.
Yeah. Now, to his point, they might do it. Because, yeah, they did blood versus water twice. They did brains versus brawn versus beauty twice. Like, not just 3 times, you know, that, but like the same name twice. But I don't think it would warrant it. You know, just, yeah, recognize that we can get cool young people. So let's do that.
All right. So second question, Hornacek, who I mentioned earlier. If either of you went on the show, which I guess we're forgetting about the non-Canadian rules or the no Canadians rule, and you didn't want to reveal your job, what job would you use instead? Do you have another job you've done in the past that you know enough about that you could pass Hannah's test? Or would you pick a job you've never done and try to BS your way through it?
So first off, I just wanted to rehash a joke I had on Twitter, is that, you know, you have the advantage is that you could tell people your job and they would never remember what it is.
I've done it so many times in the Purple Rock Slack chat, and it certainly has worked there.
Yeah, it's an ongoing inside joke that, you know, people I think get some of it, but maybe not all. John's not actually an accountant. I just, he kind of explains some money things. I'm like, so you're an accountant. You're like, I'm not an accountant. You're an accountant. So yeah, it doesn't matter what you choose. But yeah, as I was watching and laughing, that was so great. Oh yeah, the whole Hannah, yeah, figuring out he's a cop right away and Jay egging her on. Oh, what a delightful scene. That was amazing.
Yeah, this episode was loaded with stuff, so much so that we only discuss that now, like almost an hour into the show.
Yeah, I forgot it, frankly, this. And one other thing, like, I've seen just quickly to call out, I don't really have a hot take on it. Post-immunity challenge, all of them sitting on the log, dead silent, nobody saying it, was amazing. When it was happening, it's like, I want 10 minutes of this just to cringe. Oh my god.
No music, just awkward silence like you're watching The Office. Not a word, not a motion, nothing. Oh, so good. How does this show not win all the Emmys?
Because nobody that votes for Emmys would watch it. But yeah, while I was watching it, it's like, well, what you do? Because my wife is like, well, what do you do? How do you get away with that? You're never gonna get away with the lie because there's just so much time to sit around and talk. The answer is what Hornacek has here. You pick something you've done before, whether it's an older job or something you've done maybe semi-professionally. So Cass didn't want to tell anybody she was a lawyer. She talked about raising alpacas. She actually does raise alpacas, right? If you grew up on a farm, you say you're a farmer, you know, so you pick something that you know well enough that you could talk small talk. And it would also help that it's something uninteresting. I like how Brett's idea is like, oh, nobody wants to talk about funeral parlor. Like, what are you talking about? That's like crazy interesting, especially if you're bored. Whereas, like, our jobs, it's like, yeah, people are like, oh, okay, yeah, how about them Cubs, you know?
This is why, if it were me, I would just say track coach, because I've done it before. I look like I could be a track coach. I have absolutely no interesting conversations that would ever come from it, because what are you going to ask me? Oh, you teach people how to run? So, and then also, it helps me like blend in as a bro, gives me some bro cred that would help me fit in with a lot of the men they cast. Then, really, I would need all the help I could get in that category.
But yeah, like my real job, you know, it's actually for both of us, I think. The first sentence, oh, that second sounds interesting. And then I get into it, it's like, oh, that's incredibly uninteresting. But I would just pick like the thing before it, which, you know, was not interesting whatsoever. It'd be like, oh, okay. Okay, cool. And that's just the trick. If you feel like you need to lie about it, pick something you know well enough that you could have a small talk conversation and that it's not interesting at all, that anybody would want to continue that conversation. I suppose the third thing is, if you are so very obviously your job, who are you fooling? You're not going to lie about it.
Right. Own it. All right. Next mailbag question from Ms. Sweater Fan. Do you guys watch any competition reality TV other than Survivor? And if so, are there any contestants from those shows you would like to see compete on Survivor or vice versa? I'll let you go first, because I imagine this will be a short one for you.
Yeah, I don't really watch other competitive reality TV shows. And then vice versa, no, because I don't really want to watch those shows, so, you know, putting Survivors on them is not going to help me. However, I have in the past. I watched the first 2 seasons of Big Brother a bit, and then a little bit of the All-Star season. And the second in the All-Star season had the god Dr. Will Kirby. And I not so much wish that he was on Survivor now. I wish he had never been on Big Brother and was on Survivor instead. So that much, you know, other people would know about it. I could talk about him because he was amazing. Over the summer, I watched a little bit of American Ninja Warrior. That was kind of cool. And another question we got a few weeks ago from Guis, I believe, was like, what professional athlete would you like on the show? And part of it, I think the discussion sprang up with that it would be really impressive to see somebody at their peak, you know, athletic ability, so that we could just really see the difference, like what a real athlete is like. Right. So somebody from that would be cool. I was thinking like maybe that Jessie Graff, the first woman who made it to the next round, and I think does stunt work for Supergirl. But yeah, she'd be interesting in challenges and probably nowhere else. So that's all I got. You?
So I went for a poll that at least some people in our audience would recognize. The Genius, which I've hyped on this show before. It's a Korean game show. Sang Min, who is on that show, is someone I'd love to see on Survivor. The one impediment, of course, is that he doesn't speak English. So got a bit of a barrier there. If I had to take an English-speaking person, I'd like to see Nadia from Great British Bake Off, which is a show I also love. I thought it would make me very sad to see Nadia out there starving and suffering. And then also, vice versa, though, I'm going to take the Genius again, and I'm going to put Shireen on the Genius because A, I like watching Shireen, and B, I like watching the Genius. That was a really easy question.
Now, answer this for me. I think I know the answer. Is Shireen a fan of the Genius?
She is. You may not have known this, but at one point we actually did a podcast about the Genius when it was in the middle of its 4th season, and we attempted to predict the winner. We were unsuccessful.
That was a good setup, you and me. It's like a really fake podcast setup where they're like, "Hey, do you really like sleeping in your bed?
Casper Mattresses is for you."
All right, yeah, I put it out there and he delivered. All right, the last question of the week.
You've been saving this one up.
Yeah, I was pretty excited for this one, and I'd be lying if I didn't say it, if I pretended like I wasn't hoping to get a question like this, maybe a little bit, since, you know, we started doing video podcasts. This has nothing to do with Survivor, and I might go a little long, so if that's all you're interested in, thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next week. Black Dynamite was asking, what are your top 5 albums from the 90s? And I will let you go first.
I think we should go back and forth. I'll do one, you do one.
All right. So just to kind of set the tone a bit, this isn't easy for me. Now, obviously, yeah, a lot of these things aren't easy for anyone because it's like, oh, how do I choose? How do I choose? But for me, it's a bit of a dichotomy in that throughout the 90s, I exclusively listened to hip hop and R&B. That's it. Mm-hmm. I was not into alternative rock, you know, the whole grunge movement. I mean, I was aware of it because, you know, it was kind of popular. but it wasn't for me. So that music didn't speak to me at all. It was all hip hop. Now I listen to rock music. That's kind of what I'm into. I mean, no, I still listen to hip hop a bit, but not so much. So it becomes this difficult thing. It's like, how do I compare the things that I was into at the time that were so important to me? Because it wasn't just like I just like that's all the music I listened to. I was a passionate, devoted follower of it, you know.
Right.
That was like a part of my identity. But now,
yeah. So this is the same question I had too. Is it, you know, do you rate which would be your top 5 albums now, or is it which ones then had the biggest impact on you?
Yeah, and like to get it further difficulty with the mashup is that some of the things I loved then, I go back now and it's like incredibly problematic. Like, man, they hate women, you know? It's just like
really, really misogynistic lyrics.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's so funny when they, you know, do all this gay panic stuff. Like, it's, you know, like, a lot of it runs counter to my current, like, value system, right? And then one more step is, you know, as a lame-ass dad, I can't really listen to a lot of that anymore. So, yeah, it's just like, how do I balance between what I loved then, what I love now, and where, you know, I kind of landed in the middle is, you know, obviously a mix, but the things that make this list also kind of have to survive that. You know, it can't just be like, oh man, I really love that album now, and like I'm embarrassed to listen to it now. So I still love these albums, but it's just kind of like me now versus me then makes it a little difficult. And then the result, and you know, I know this is where you and I completely diverge. The 90s actually might be my least favorite era of music.
This is the longest preamble to giving one answer to a question that I've ever heard, even from you. So bravo.
Oh, I've got so much. You guys are letting me pretend to be a bit of like tiny bit of a music critic. You know, like how much I want people to care about my opinions about this. Next time, just ask me a question about my fantasy football team and I'll just go off.
Oh God.
So, since I did a long preamble, how about I let you pick one first?
All right. Well, this is easy because it's much like you. For the large portion of the 90s, I was strictly hip hop and R&B stuff. But at some point, Nirvana's Nevermind came out, and that has to make my list just because of the impact. That was the intro to the alternative grunge music thing for me. So gotta make the list.
Nevermind is also on my list, and for similar reasons. And not just, yeah, oh, it's so iconic, it has to be there. Like, I genuinely love the album, and yep. This is where it's interesting. I didn't need to listen to it at all then. Obviously, like, I heard, Smells Like Teen Spirit and probably a few of the other ones, but yeah, that wasn't my jam. But yeah, like, when we talk about Gen X culture, and that's why this, you know, obviously this question comes up for this season. It's why, you know, I'm putting, you know, albums at the, you know, behind me and videos. It's why I slipped in Smells Like Teen Spirit at the end of one of our podcasts to create a new little gimmick. That, I think, is the defining moment when our generation finally seized some level of control of the death grip that the boomers had on popular culture. Like, I think, you know, you can, like, differentiate between the two. And obviously, like, there's influential stuff that preceded Nevermind. You know, things that influenced Nevermind. But that is the album that I think, like, helps define the 90s. And, yeah, you basically only need to listen to, like, the opening riffs of Smells Like Teen Spirit that heavily, you know, borrow from More Than a Feeling. And, like, you just, something has changed in this moment. So yeah, no, it's a great album. Mine too.
All right. Well, you can go next though, cause I did start there. So what do you got?
Probably my number one, both of the decade and possibly my favorite album of all time is Radiohead's OK Computer.
Okay. I was never a Radiohead fan. Go ahead, internet, hate me for it. I don't care.
No, I think that's fair because, you know, where I'll get into it, it's just probably not a vibe that you're into. Well,
right.
I've listened to it 100 times and it can still just affect me completely. This was especially true when I'd like listen to it on my way to my like old job or during my old job. And then I'd just be lost for the day. It's just like, wow, my life is so meaningless. And I know I can totally get why that's not really a vibe you like feel like, oh, I'm going to put on an OK Computer and go work out or anything like that. And I don't say that to diminish you as like a, you know, a thoughtful person or anything. But yeah, it just speaks to me in a way, and frankly in a way that feels even more true in our day and age than necessarily did then. It was very prescient. And I, you know, just every song on that album I just am blown away by.
All right. Well, we both talked about being big hip hop fans, so I feel like I should include a hip hop album here. Thing is, for me, this artist had to make the list. It was just a question of which album, and just because of the volume of songs on it, I went with Biggie Smalls' Life After Death. Yes, Ready to Die was a really good album, had very memorable tracks, but there were some on Life After Death that I still listen to. I actually listened to Sky's the Limit like yesterday. So for me, Biggie had to make the list. And if I'm picking a Biggie album, I'm choosing Life After Death.
Yeah, I'm Ready to Die over Life After Death.
I mean, that's understandable. Both for impact and for songs choice on there, if you like Biggie, you could like either one.
Yeah. Well, also, like, the later 90s glut of double albums was just, like, part of, like, symbolic of, like, how, like, hip-hop had just become a little, too big for itself and was starting to collapse under the weight. All which started with, like, Tupac's, All Eyes on Me.
Hey, funny you should mention that. I'll go ahead and give something away here.
Nice.
So guess what else is on my list?
Let's see. Machiavelli?
No, Machiavelli was garbage.
What?
All Eyes on Me. All Eyes on Me was great. And I had the same thought though, because I was going back to look at albums and I was like, man, what's with the double album thing? I forgot that was a thing back at the time. And there's so many songs on there. A lot of them suck. But then there's gems mixed in. And then there's, of course, the skits. Oh, my God, the skits. 90s rappers loved the skits.
I know. That's another thing that sometimes makes it hard to go back. It's like, come on. Because I'm a person that, like, truly loves albums. And, like, the arrangement, and it's another reason why OK Computer is my favorite, is just like, the flow from track to track, especially on the B-side, is just amazing. But yeah, All Eyes on Me, Tupac put together a double album, was able to sell more units than he'd ever before at a higher price point. And people, because this is back when people bought, CDs, at like $30 a pop. And so everybody's like, I want in on that action. And obviously it makes sense for Biggie, his rival, the other biggest name in hip hop, to do it. And also because this was the last material they were going to, scrape out of him. But then like Wu-Tang does it and that album isn't as good. And then like some weird people started doing it. I think like the Dog Pound might have a double album or more than that. I think it was like maybe one of the Dog Pound. So anyway, like Corrupt, I think. Anyway,
Deep pulse.
Yeah, All Eyes on Me is not my favorite Tupac album. I prefer Me Against the World. And throughout the 90s, he was probably my favorite soloist. He does not make this list.
Yeah, I don't want to be clear. I want to make a quick point here that like the late 90s is when I got a CD burner for the first time. And so I just started putting all my favorite tracks from certain artists onto CDs, regardless of the album they came from.
I was making mixtapes, literal mixtapes, but crafting, like, what is the perfect transition from one song to song?
Nope. I was the weirdo that was like, I like this Tupac song. I like this Soundgarden song. I like this Pearl Jam song. I'll just put them all together. Same CD. Who cares?
Crazy. So, in that vein, though, since we're here, I have entered the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers on there. I think it was amazing then. It blew me away. It still holds up. One of the delights of Luke Cage was getting to hear some of it, although it was really weird that they had an edited version of Bring the Ruckus. But that didn't edit everything. It was weird. But, like, I loved that album so much at the time that I wasted so much money trying to get every Wu-Tang, affiliated CD. And I don't just mean, like, the classics, like Liquid Swords or Only Built for Cuban Links or whatever. I mean, like, the side projects. I had like,
The Killer Bees.
That's the one I didn't. And I think only because it wasn't released in Canada. So I would have had to pay like $40 to get an album of songs I'd never heard. I had the Geniuses' first album, pre-Wu-Tang. He wasn't even Jizzy yet. It was awful. There was like, I think like a Pharaoh Monk or something. It's just like, just Enter the Wu-Tang just blew me away. Just the varying styles, RZA's amazing production, and to get back to the double album thing, they had already lost it by Wu-Tang Forever, which would have probably been possibly near its equal if they just cut it down to 12 tracks.
The thing for me is I didn't get into Wu-Tang until much later. Like when they first came out, I was not interested at all. partly because of a certain other rap group that I'll get to later, but I eventually came around to them, and I will say you're right. It holds up really well. You can still listen to some of those tracks, and they're great.
It's funny, Black Dynamite gave us an out if we didn't want to answer this question. We could have been like, pick your favorite Tribe Called Quest album. I'm going to answer both questions, Black Dynamite, because Low End Theory makes my top 5.
I will never hate on you for picking Tribe Called Quest. They're great. I loved Fife Dog. Loved the Q-Tip. We did the R.I.P. Fife Dog routine when he sadly passed away, so not gonna hate on that selection.
Yeah, no, I listened to this CD over and over throughout junior high to the point where, like, it almost convinced me that I like jazz. I mean, really? Jazz?
I hate jazz so much.
I mean, look, there's a few albums, yeah, and nothing special. I'm not going to show off my chops like, oh, wow, you like Miles Davis, kind of blue. And frankly, my favorite jazz album is probably the Charlie Brown soundtrack. But like at that time, it's like, oh, I'm going to get into this because I loved everything about it. And so yeah, I wanted to be into jazz. I wanted to wear starter jackets. I wanted to wear the hat. And frankly, I did. I think I had a Philadelphia Eagles winter jacket that Fife had worn in the video. I never got the cool Hornets pullover one, but oh man. It holds up even better now in some ways. Fife lyrics often don't, like the flow holds up tremendously, but he's so referential and his lyrics is like,
yeah. Do you listen to it now and you're like, what's he talking about?
They have a song about sky pagers, but just like, Q-Tips and, Ali's production is just amazing. And it is a tough call between this and Midnight Marauders. If it's a top 10, both might make my list, but Low End Theory is the one I fell in love with first.
All right. So here's one where this is tough because it's just me being me here. Like, I have to pick Stone Temple Pilots Core because I saw Stone Temple Pilots in concert like 5 or 6 times. I love their stuff. I listen to it all the time. So STP has to make my list. Sorry, Internet, it's not the most cultured of choices.
Is that your whole 5?
No, I got one more right.
Okay.
I think.
So my final one in my top 5, I'm gonna go all the way back to 1990 because I'm somebody who believes decades include the 0 years. There are weirdos who think that's the last year or first year or the previous decade. That's stupid. 90s includes 1990. And I'm gonna go with, Public Enemy's Fear of a Black Planet, which
Ooh.
Very well might be the most influential album in my life as a music fan. Prior to that, I was still listening to some hip hop, but it was like, Tone Loc, Young MC, DJ Jazzy Jeff, and some other things. I'd already been introduced to it through Run DMC, right? They have a track with Aerosmith, so they finally get some radio play and get played on Much Music. Canadians know what that is.
Sure, Much Music. Yes,
yeah.
That one.
We had a Rhapsody, but it wasn't the same one with you guys. No, Ed Lover or anything like that. And then I got Fear of a Black Planet, I think because, they did a special on, Public Enemy right around the release Do the Right Thing. And it blew me away and introduced me not only to like a deeper appreciation of music, but like an entire culture, there's injustices in the world that, this white Canadian doesn't understand. I poured over
It got you woke.
Yeah, and it's not like I was like this rich suburban white kid. I didn't grow up in the nicest neighborhood, but still Canadian neighborhood, so. I'm not dodging gunfire. I'm not even dodging knife fights, but, I had the cassette and I would just read over the lyrics. Because of that album, I became more into music than I had before previously, and I think since then was more into music as a result.
Man, and that's a great segue into something that didn't make my list, but I felt like I had to mention it because if I'm making the list for 1990s me listening to these things in real time, it's what I don't care if it's embarrassing. Rage Against the Machine, Evil Empire would have made 14-year-old me's list. I loved that album. It got me #woke. And I used to because I had a Walkman that I would run with because that's how old I am. And they had a song, People of the Sun, that was exactly 2.5 minutes. So I made it run back to back to run 5-minute miles, and it worked. And I love the album, and I have fond memories of it, even though it sounds ridiculous now. But it didn't make my list because of that. The fact that, like, I would never listen to it again, but I loved it then.
Right. So what did?
I wanted to include an Outkast album, but
so
my problem
hard.
was that it was so hard.
Not hard to, like, then quit. It's like, how do you pick? Like, it changes all the time what my favorite Outkast album is.
Yes, and that's the problem that I had, is that they're like completely different styles, and they reference it on the albums. They would basically say, like, why did we do an album where we sounded like we were aliens? And, you know, why are we getting into this weird, like, experimental music type stuff? I couldn't pick just one Outkast album. And so I ended up just saying, screw it, I can't pick an Outkast album, even though I desperately want to include them on this list. And instead, I went for Metallica's The Black Album.
Understood.
I was not a big heavy metal person at all, but Metallica's Black Album had much more crossover appeal. And just really well done music. Like, you can still listen to it now just because they're talented musicians. And, you know, Mosh Pit me, that was 14 or 15, thought that the album was really good.
All right. So, that is our top fives. We'll start a thread on the post for everyone else to share yours. And, thank you all for indulging me. I got to talk about music again, in a way that I don't get to as a super old dad. Like, yeah. I listen to Yo Gabba Gabba some Disney tracks.
Oh man, I've got to get you in on the Peg Plus Cat.
I've watched that show. I don't have it in the, minivan that I drive. Yes. I used to be cool, man. Like, I mean, like a type of cool, not like cool. And now
you're just driving down the street, bumping the Jake and the Neverland Pirates.
Yeah, I mean, like on Sundays while we're making breakfast, I can put on a record, but it's not like I'm putting on 36 Chambers. I listen to Taylor Swift now, and not even just because of my kids. I think it's genuinely well-crafted pop music. Yeah, but that wasn't what I was. So, thanks everyone for indulging me. I think we should do some plugs.
All right, let's do some plugs. First of all, thank you to Sharkules, who did our Australian Survivor coverage. I believe that show is over now.
I think so, and I don't know either. We probably should have paid attention at least to that, right?
Yeah, big thanks to him, because we legitimately, like, just said, here's a login, go in there, write it whatever you want, and hit publish. We're not gonna do anything else.
We didn't even edit it. Like, he could have been just mixing in hate messaging in there. We wouldn't know. I mean,
it could have been entire posts saying vote Donald Trump, and we wouldn't have known.
I mean, clearly, like, Sharkules, from what we know about him, wouldn't have done those things. And then also we trust the nature of our community to, self-regulate. And that's why we did it. We knew our community wanted a place to talk about it, and we've created a place that they enjoy talking about things. Thank you to Sharkules for doing that for us, because, we weren't interested whatsoever.
Enough with the dog pictures, though.
It was cute.
Next season, it was. I enjoyed it. Next season, though, we're probably going to have to, like, promote this in some way, so we're going to have to switch to actual useful, relevant pictures for the episode.
I kind of respect it, though, because, like, he totally keyed in on the fact, like, man, they don't care. Nobody's gonna stop me. And he was right. We were like, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, again, as I said very early in the show, I respect that our listeners want to troll us. It's fantastic.
But yeah, so those are on our website. You can find that at www.purplerockpodcast.com. You can find us on Twitter at Purple Rock Pod. I am Purple Rock Andy.
I'm Purple Rock John, and if you need to email us for some reason, it's purplerockpodcast@gmail.com.
You can subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. And if you'd like to help support the podcast so that it's not quite the deep, money hole that it is, you can do so by buying stuff on Amazon. Things you're going to buy anyway, we will get a small percentage of it, and I can never remember how people do that.
Yeah, you can just go on our page and you'll see a thing that says Amazon link. Just click through there. That's all you gotta do. And then shop at Amazon like you normally would.
All right. Merge next week. Very excited about it. A little sad about the outcome of this week, but, still pretty amazed at how it happened.
I'm sure we can find some sort of relevant music to play about it.
send their regards.